everybody, Geraldine Rose here. I've got a card that had one misadventure after another, but I think it turned out okay. I didn't need this card for a hop or anything else. I just did it just because. And it's how I've been dealing with those feelings that a lot of us came out of the new year, January 2nd, and struggling with the world events that are going on right now. I had a lot of anger, and then it went into other feelings, and I lost a few of my lights at the same time, my aught light and my light box for taking photos, and the frustration that I had with not being able to get things to work right to the level that I wanted them to. And so I just started making cards and thinking, okay, you always feel better when you send out cards to other people. It boosts your spirits. Maybe it'll help other people too. And so I started the sharing, the caring kind of little mini series that I've got going on. And this was another one in it. I took out the zero waste, the wildflower cover plate. And instead of cutting things out with it, I ran it through with that embossing pad to get an impression. I thought I could get the watercolors to set down into the little impressions that it would emboss then. But no, it didn't emboss deep enough. And it's about this stage that I realized it's not going to do what I want it to do. So I spritzed everything out, and I thought I'll just throw some Lindy's Magicals over the top, and grabbed out the three primary colors, plunking them down like tappy, tappy, tappy on the end so that it doesn't all come out at once. And I'm going to spritz it with water. I thought, okay, well, at least I can get the panel to do something else, because I always love when the Lindy's run and you can see them bleeding out through the rest of the panel. Still didn't look where I wanted it to go. So I thought, okay, just overspray the whole thing with some shimmer sprays. So I've got the green Altenew one out, and I've got one of the Ranger Mica ones. This was that turquoisey green that they've got, and sprayed across the top. I'll spray that with water to get it to run over top of the other colors, because I thought, okay, well, I don't like the way that the primaries didn't blend, so let's just put it back to like a green and a yellow. That looked a lot better. So I thought, okay, great. I'm going to emboss it again. And it slightly shifted, and it did it every single time I ran through. So I just went with it, and I thought, okay, just run through multiple times and then die cut around the edge with like the wonky stitched triangles. Put it aside. I am grabbing out the Have Faith die. I'm doing the top layer in yellow, and of course the other ones are the shadow layers underneath. And I wanted this to stand up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to multiple heat emboss it several times with the clear powder. And sorry that is off screen. I think I was trying to get so that my camera would catch it and my silicone pad on the other side that I will sometimes heat emboss on when I'm flipping back and forth. So what I've done is I've dunked it in my Trasher Versamark first, and then into the clear powder. I'm heating it, and while it's still hot, I'm dumping it back into my tub and tapping it in to grab powder onto the stuff that's still warm and will catch it, putting it back, heat embossing it again. So I went back and forth like this 3 or 4 times with the clear, because I'm trying to build it up so that it will dome. I should have just grabbed out, I've got like a super thick clear embossing powder. I should have just done that. But anyways, I had fun. I got embossing powder underneath my nails and still doing the clear. Now this is where I'm bringing out the UT. So this UT, which is ultra thick embossing powder, this one has a little bit of interference blue in it, and it's one of my favorites. So this is going to be the final layer. Of course, the Versamark and everything else is very sticky in getting rid of that powder that's on the end. That one, because I did have to let it cool in between, that is why I redid that one Versamark. So in the meantime, I have grabbed out Prism Studios, my nesting heart dies, and I've cut them so that it kind of does a framing, but because of course each of the hearts is a different size, it ends up with a pretty cool heart. And I did that in like a metallic glitter paper. So we got aside, and I'm going to bring in some snowflakes and the snow flurries, Concord and Ninth, doing that with like that laser sheen paper. Figured I would tuck them in behind because I want a transitional card that's kind of going between winter and sort of into Valentine's and into spring, hence the flowers. Because I was going to garland wreath them around that heart, I needed smaller flowers. That's why I grabbed out the Petite Mountain Avon and the Cute Open Rose. I did one of the rose and two of the avens, but I'm going to do them the same colors. So it's going to be deceptive that you think you're kind of looking at the same flower species, but one has opened up more than the others. But if you take a closer look, you'll realize that they're not. And I wanted them to kind of be like Edelweiss, where we have like a lighter colored flower. So I'm using greens, and then I'm going back over with my detail brushes to put in a little bit more green veining through the centers of them. And then I come in with yellow just around the outside edges and leave a hint of white on the outer edges. Now, these are the keyhole method. They do have numbers on them, and just used that to layer them up bit by bit by bit. I did have a little bit of glitter for the stamens on them and the pistils and the stamens. And then there's the yellow center on the top. Flicking some water on to get a few distress spots on them. And then, because I don't have those new tools where they have the ball on the end that you can cause the petals to round, I just grabbed out one of my jelly pens and I flipped my Misty over and I used the foam on the backside, and I just did that on the petals myself. And it just gives it just a little bit of texture that they are actually popping up off of the card. For the one that is the rose, I have it up on some foam squares so that it stands up a little bit more than the others. And I'm starting with the snowflakes, tucking them in, and then I'm tucking in some of the white leaves, and then just bit by bit, I'm building this heart garland wreath up. I did have some vellum as well, and what I did with that is I had flipped it over and I used alcohol markers on the backside to bring in a little bit of that gold veining, and then just dabbed it with the colorless blender to drive it back in other directions. So this is just the assemblage. I feel like I'm making a wreath for the door. You could do. I mean, my gosh, why not? We can all cut hearts out of paper, right? I am tucking this sandwiched Have Faith. It's got the vellum behind it, which was in green, and then there's one layer underneath that so that it will stick better to the cardstock. I'm popping this all into my splatter box. I forgot that I was going to do this. And I was like, remember to keep your Have Faith off so that you can splatter it without worrying about it. So I just used a little bit of paper towel to cover over top of it. And I used some gold mica ink first. And then I used some of the Distress Spray Stain and Picket Fence mixed with a little bit of white acrylic paint to splatter them. All right, I thought it still needed something, so I did a couple more glitter snowflakes in like light greens so that they would tie in with the color scheme that we've got. For the sub-sentiment, this was from the Reverse Let's Party from Simon Says Stamp, using my guillotine trimmer to trim it down. This, because it's got a white edge, I will come back over top of that with an alcohol marker. And I didn't do it in black, I did it in green. But I've jumped to the inside of the card. I am using one of my old Close to My Heart stamps. Love this one. A million reasons. So many good sentiments on it. And they have such lovely fonts, and I'm really sad that they went out of business. Doing my typical ombreing, though, where I start out with light green, and then I put the yellow up at the top, and then I put the mid green in the middle, and the darker green down at the bottom. And for the other sub-sentiment, that was Spellbinders. Sunshine Sentiments? Anyways, just used it in straight standard green from the Simon Says Stamp inks because they are the best for doing the like really delicate words that does not bleed out as much. All right, we got some sticky tape down on the back of the panel, and we have glued it down into place. This is where I'm edging that with a light green, and you don't really see it until you look at it from the side, and then you realize, well, that's really different. Had to put a few foam squares on that I'd nipped in half so that it would all be at the same level because, of course, your flower is going to stick up a little bit more on that one side. Luckily, didn't have to use my T ruler because I just lined it up with the faith. And here's the shiny, shiny bling bling. And I used some of the picket fence hearts, and then some of this calls for confetti, the prism ones. I think those are my favorite. They capture all the colors. And for one last final thing, grabbed out some of the solar paste. This was golden hour, and I just slightly put it around the outside of those flower petals just for the wee little tint of shimmer that you can kind of see when you flip that card to the side. So it's got shimmer on the panel, it's got shimmer on the flowers from the splatters. And there we are. That's the finished card. All right, so I think that it would be great if we could all get out and do some cards and, share some care. Send them out to everybody else. Let's be that change we want to see in the world. And in the meantime, thanks to everybody for subbing and watching and liking. We'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.